Welcome! In this explainer, we're diving into one of the absolute most mind-boggling places on Earth, Petra. It's this ancient, lost oasis carved literally right into sheer desert cliffs, and honestly, it continues to completely baffle modern engineers to this very day.
To really get a sense of how incredible this place is, we actually have to jump back to 1812. Picture this. A Swiss explorer named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt is risking his life disguised as an Arab pilgrim trekking through the desert, and he basically stumbles upon these stunning ruins that local Bedouin tribes had fiercely guarded for centuries.
When he finally emerged from this dark, super narrow desert canyon, what he found was the Treasury. And the sheer scale of this thing is just staggering. It's a monumental facade standing 127 feet tall. To put that in perspective, that's twice the height of Mount Rushmore. And the craziest part? It's carved entirely out of the living sandstone cliff.
Now, seeing a masterpiece like that immediately sparks a massive puzzle. How in the world did a tribe of wandering tent dwellers manage to create a thriving desert metropolis capable of supporting tens of thousands of people?
Well, let's get into it. Section 1. The Rise of the Nabataeans, Nomads Turned Wealthy Merchants. To solve this puzzle, we first have to look at the brilliant minds behind the city. So these folks, the Nabataeans, transformed from desert nomads around 400 BC into an incredibly powerful kingdom. How? By controlling the highly lucrative trade routes for frankincense and myrrh, stretching across the Arabian desert all the way to Rome and Greece. This made them rich, like unbelievably wealthy. By the 1st century AD, their capital city had reached its absolute peak in both wealth and population.
And because they were sitting right at the center of global trade, they were exposed to, well, everything. All that booming wealth allowed them to basically synthesize global architectural styles from the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, and the Assyrians into something completely uniquely their own. We're talking classical Greek doorways mixed with Egyptian cornices and Assyrian crow steps, all mashed up on the exact same facades. It's wild.
Moving on to Section 2, Mystery 1, Masters of Carved Stone. Because having the money and the vision, that's really only half the battle. Building this magnificent city presented a massive engineering puzzle that actually left experts scratching their heads for decades. Here's the crucial question. You're in a barren, bone-dry desert. There are basically no local trees to use for massive wooden scaffolding. So how on earth do you carve 10-story monuments into sheer cliffs? The breakthrough came when modern geoscientists found a massive clue in what's known as the unfinished tomb. If you look at it, the top of the monument is totally finished. Intricate capitals, tons of details, but the bottom is just bare, uncarved natural rock. This was the light bulb moment. It revealed that the Nabataeans didn't build up from the ground. Actually, they carved from the top down. It is a totally brilliant method. They started at the very top by drilling pins into the rock and laying out just a few temporary wooden planks to stand on. Then they carved downward, and here's the genius part. They allowed the falling sandstone rubble to pile up and form a natural walking ramp. So they were literally using their own carved waste as a ramp to reach the lower levels.
Let's look at Section 3, Mystery 2, the Ancient Desert Las Vegas. Okay, so now we know how they carved the city, but that brings us to an even more pressing everyday issue, survival.
Think about this for a second. Petra gets only a few inches of rain a year, and there are absolutely no major rivers flowing anywhere near it. So how exactly did an entire metropolis of 30,000 people avoid dying of thirst?
The answer is hydroengineering on a scale that is frankly hard to wrap your head around. Using modern ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR drones, researchers have uncovered a true master plan. The Nabataeans actually laid down 125 miles of pipelines, built 36 different dams for flood control, and carved over 100 cisterns and reservoirs that were capable of holding over 10 million gallons of stored water. But here's the thing. They weren't just building big, they were building incredibly smart. Modern fluid dynamics tests have shown that their ceramic pipes were meticulously angled at exactly a 4-degree slope. Why 4 degrees? Well, lab tests proved that a steeper 6-degree slope caused turbulent water, which would pressurize the pipes and result in bursting leaks at all the joints. But a 4-degree slope perfectly moved the water fast and steady, while deliberately leaving an airspace at the top to prevent pressure from building up. You guys, this is an advanced scientific principle that the West literally wouldn't discover for another 2,000 years. And this brilliant system gave them a massive surplus. We're talking about 8 liters of water per person per day. And as archaeologist Leanne Badal points out, they totally flaunted it. They built monumental sunken pools, incredibly lush terrace gardens, and massive fountains. It was this flashy, ancient Las Vegas-style display of wealth designed specifically to all weary travelers who had just barely survived the harsh desert.
Section 4. The Fall. The Collapse of Petra. Because despite all that brilliant engineering and stunning architecture, this golden age of wealth and water just couldn't last forever.
A devastating combination of disasters eventually brought the whole city down. By the 2nd century CE, trade routes started shifting, and archaeologists actually find animal bones and trash dumped into those once luxurious pools, pointing to a severe decline. Then, a massive earthquake strikes in 363 CE. And finally, in the 5th century, a catastrophic flash flood completely cripples whatever was left of the city's delicate infrastructure. Without the resources to maintain their 36 dams, the protective systems just completely failed. Raging floodwaters rushed violently down right through Petra's city center, ripping up the cobblestones and permanently burying the main street. It's incredibly tragic. The very water they had so brilliantly harnessed ultimately contributed to their downfall, washing away their golden age and causing the entire city to fade into local legend. Which brings us to the present day. Today, hundreds of thousands of tourists visit this new wonder of the world, marveling at the towering facades and stunning canyons. But it really begs the question, are we actually seeing the whole picture? Amazingly, the answer is no. After over a century of formal excavations and exploration, archaeologists estimate that we have only uncovered about 15% of the entire city. Let that sink in for a second. Everything we know, everything we've talked about in this explainer today comes from just that one tiny slice.
Which means 85% of Petra is still underground, completely untouched. And that leaves us with one final, absolutely incredible question. What breathtaking secrets, what unseen monuments and untold stories are still hiding in that remaining 85%, just waiting to be pulled from beneath the desert sands?